welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author book, Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV, or social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Susan Hayward, and we are going to talk about what is actually mental health. Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hi, Sophie. I'm very well. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation to speak on your podcast.
No worries at all. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, the short version, otherwise we'll be here all day,
Okay.
is I'm a Londoner by birth. I've lived in, my schooling was two continents, 3 countries, kind of complicated stuff. I have a university degree, but I've been living back in the UK here now since 2005.
Yeah.
And I retrained. I have a commercial sales and marketing background in the chemical industry. And I retrained to deliver the mental health first aid courses in 2015. And I've been doing that full time ever since.
Okay. So how did that come about then?
Well, this is where I get to talk about my kids a wee bit. My son was assessed as having ADHD when he was 6 years old. We were living in Zimbabwe at the time. And out in Zimbabwe, there's no teaching assistants in the classrooms. There's no Senkos. Social services weren't bothered about us. And I remember saying to the child psychologist who did the assessment, and now what? And so she sort of panic on her face, grabbed a book and said, get yourself a copy of this book. So I did, and I started reading it and going, oh, my little he does a bit of this, but not so much that. And then I kept reading, and after about 2 weeks, I had a bit of a light bulb moment and realized that ADHD can be inherited and through family lines, because I could see quite clearly traits that were causing a problem for my son were actually traits that his dad had. Oh, that was interesting. There was a bit of a spin-off. God bless her, rest in peace. But a couple of weeks after that, finally actually understood my mother-in-law, and I could see very clearly what was going on. So what does one do into this situation? You need people to talk to, you need some help. What do you do? I actually set up the ADHD support group out in Zimbabwe that was known as Zamada at the time. And at one point, I supported directly, indirectly 118 families in 118 weeks.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is just having someone to talk to, someone who understands some of where you're at. But in that time, I also was approached by people who were affected by every single one of the mental health conditions that I train on today, and a few others besides. So I've got this broad basis of background knowledge. And when I decided I wanted to work for myself, I heard about in the UK, we have this thing called mental health first aid, and it became a bit of a brainworm, bored in. So I did some research and realized I can do that. I understand a bit about this already. So I did the training. I added a teaching certificate. I've added a coaching and mentoring certificate. And basically created a new job for myself and get on with it from there. So I think my focus, if anything, is on the well-being of people and their businesses, because small and micro businesses, when it comes to business support, small and micro businesses are the ones that really struggle. And when you have a small or micro business, that is your business, it's your baby. And if it struggles, you struggle, and that has an impact on your mental health. So it's 3 corners of the same triangle in my mind. Mental health on the one hand, personal development coaching on the other, and business coaching is the third. And that's what I do today.
Fair enough. So tell us, what is mental health?
Well, I think the first thing we've really got to get our heads around the fact is that the phrase mental health is neither positive nor negative.
And that's a very good point, because it really is portrayed always as being something negative.
Yeah. Well, what you see generally in the media, and whether it's newspaper, television, films, it's negative.
Yeah.
And yet it's an umbrella term. And one of the things we challenge people to do in the mental health first aid course is to change their language. when they mean good mental health, good well-being, to call it that. And when they mean poor mental health, poor well-being, to call it that. So that we know what we're talking about accurately. And this is one of the big challenges, because we've used the phrase incorrectly for so long, we've actually lost touch with what mental health actually is.
Yeah, it's a bit of an umbrella term at the moment, isn't it?
Yep, it is an umbrella term. And I think if I could quote for you the World Health Organization's definition of of mental health, it sums it up really nicely. It says that mental health is a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. That is mental health. It's about how we think, how we feel, how we behave. Can we cope? Do we manage?
And this is the thing at the moment. I think when you hear mental health, it's someone who you imagine is not coping, and that person is feeling that they can't do it by themselves, that they need help. That's how it's become associated, isn't it?
Well, poor mental health is a diagnosable illness. Now, and this is one of the things a lot of people don't realize. If that what I read to you there was the World Health Organization's definition of mental health, if we go back a step to their definition of health, now they drafted this definition of health back in 1947, included it in their constitution in 1948, bit of history for you, okay? And their definition of health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And yet, if I use the phrase health...
all you think is illness.
Well, no, if we use health, all we think about is physical. We think about a physical body. Is it in a good place? And that. Whereas if we actually look at it, what the World Health Organization has said health is, it's got three aspects. It's a bit like those old-fashioned milking stools. You know, you'd be out in the cow bar and you're sitting on a three-leg stool. And if those three legs sticking out around with a flat bit on top, if those legs, if one is physical health, one is mental health, and one is social health, if one of those legs is cut short for some reason or other, that stool won't stay upright, it will fall over. Okay. So for us to be healthy, we need all three of those aspects to be well balanced: our mental health, our physical health, and our social health. And if we take a look at the impact that the COVID lockdowns have had on our society in terms of all three of those aspects, physical health, mental health, and social health, it's not surprising that so many people are struggling today.
And the thing as well is that they all feed through one another, don't they? I mean, like in NLP, there's one of the presuppositions, which is that like the body and the mind are one system. And that if one doesn't work, the other one is going to suffer too. So it's obvious, isn't it?
It's very much a balanced organism, if we could call it that.
If you think
all three are important to us.
And you're not very well, you don't particularly want to go and socialise. You don't, so as a result, you might feel lonely and isolated. If you're feeling low for some reason and you have poor mental health, again, you don't want to socialise. And you might have physical implications. So it is all linked.
Yeah, they are totally interlinked. And and this is one of the things that we need to realize, that hang on a minute, for example, some people turn around and go, well, oh no, but they've got a diagnosis of, but it's affected by mental health. Oh, no, just pull yourself together and get on with it. But in actual fact, mental health diagnoses are illnesses in their own right. What criteria do we use for an illness? Well, illnesses can be diagnosed. They have a treatment plan, and there is recovery to some extent. Okay, depending on how it goes. That applies for mental health as well as physical health. And a lot of people don't realize that under the Disabilities Act, if a mental health condition is going to impact a person for a year or more, they're actually protected by the Disabilities Act. So how can it not be an illness? Why is it that, pull yourself together and get over it, or it's a figment of your imagination? Atabuncum. It's not. It is diagnosable illness.
I think the problem is that there's two types in a way. There's that, but there's a lot of people who we self-diagnose too. We say they have poor mental health, but actually what I'm seeing sometimes is that it's more that they're hiding behind the label, or they're just hiding behind what's the real problem.
Well, if a person has a problem,
go to the
the
doctor.
ideal situation is they need to go to the GP and they need to get a diagnosis. You know, if this impacts your life and it's an ongoing situation, it can be diagnosed as an illness. Once you've got a diagnosis, you get treatment. Once you get treatment will lead to recovery, and things, you know, have the opportunity to get better.
So
but if you're just saying, "Oh, woe is me," and that I've got X, Y, and Z, and there is no hope and no future, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It is, yeah. So what do you think people don't go? Because quite a few, I mean, obviously we've got variations. Men don't like to talk about their own feelings. Women probably talk too much and don't necessarily want to be fixed or whatever, generalizing here. But why do you think people don't make that step?
I think there's a number of issues at stake here. One could be that they don't realize they're ill.
Yeah.
That it is an illness and something can be done. Two, it could be a level of fear, because this has been part of their lives for so long that they don't, that this is like the buddy they know, and they'd rather have that than not have it, because it defines them. It's become a bit of their identity. Yeah. There are people who think that having anything to do with mental health on their medical records will blight them for life. They'll never be employed in another job ever again, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, they don't want a diagnosis.
Which, to be fair, is not even a thing, because you don't disclose your medical record anymore. You don't have to.
No, you don't. Absolutely not. There's no requirement to do that. So what's the big issue?
Yeah.
The big issue is that, people need to be encouraged that if they are struggling, that, they're not the only one who's struggling. There's a lot of people struggling out there. And that doesn't mean that you are worth any less of help and support if you need help and support, but you've got to ask for it.
Yeah,
and you've got to start somewhere, moving forward to get appropriate help and support. Talk to people. If people are wondering what's going on and, is there help out there, there's an absolutely brilliant app called the Hub of Hope. And in the Hub of Hope, you literally put in your postcode, you put in your maybe some of your signs and symptoms, or if you think you might have depression, put depression on your postcode in there and see what comes up. There's oodles of really good positive information in the Hub of Hope. If you're working for an organization that employs a bunch of people, well, do you have any mental health first aiders on staff?
Which is becoming more and more common, isn't it?
Well, it needs to be, because mental health needs to be viewed and treated in the same way as physical health.
Yeah.
And it will, before too long, become a legal requirement that if an organization has employs 5 or more people, they will have to have a physical first aider and mental health first aiders on staff.
Can I just say something? It's a question, it's a comment, I don't know, say there are a number of companies, when they introduced all the well-being stuff for the employees, and there are a lot of companies that actually do it on paper, but actually stick the box exercise rather than actually do it.
Yeah.
And the worry is that this could be the same.
I think the bottom line is this: if they talk about staff well-being, if they actually do it, they'll realize huge benefits to their bottom line in terms of turnover, productivity, staff morale, decreased staff churn. It becomes, from that perspective, it's an absolute no-brainer.
I completely
if they're doing it as a tick box exercise, they're going to know quite rapidly, because people will go, well, they talk, they don't walk it. It's all hot air. Which business would you rather work with? Which business would you rather partner with? I'd rather work with one who goes, we haven't got this quite right, we're working on it, and actually making positive step forward.
I'm recording
just ticking the CSR box.
An employee satisfaction survey or something along those lines. And to be honest with you, we must have spent an awful long time, because the question was so well engineered to make you say what they wanted you to say. And I'm like, that defies the point, because
but that is how, if they're doing it on that basis, it's going to shoot them in the foot. It'll come around to haunt them somewhere along the line, and I would rather get the message out there, because the more people that I can inform and educate about mental health, what we can do about it, how we can be in a better position today than we were yesterday, and a better position tomorrow than we are today, and work on it bit by bit by bit. And, create happy places, good communities for the people that I'm training, the people that I'm involved in. And the other organizations that don't want to get involved, they'll catch up when they're ready.
So what can one do to improve their mental health then?
Okay, there are 3 core areas to consider here. And you've probably heard these all before, because we know these 3 are actually good for our physical health. The first one is sleep. Are we getting sufficient sleep, and sufficient good quality sleep? So sleep is twofold here. The second one is physical activity. And please note, I have not used the E word here. I haven't said exercise. Okay, it's physical activity. If you talk to the proverbial couch potato, who just, the farthest they walk is either upstairs to go to bed, or to the kitchen to get the next snack. Physical activity to them is an absolute anathema. So they're going to get visions of sweaty bodies and gym, and them struggling. Physical activity in that situation is, every time the adverts come on, stand up. It's a really simple baby step. Every time the adverts come on, stand, and just stay standing. That's the first step towards an exercise routine. Stand up.
The thing is, it doesn't have to be like going to the gym. You could go for a walk.
Yeah, but you don't even, but you can work, you can build it up to that. You can build it up to that. What the challenge is, start somewhere. Because if we can start ingraining good habits like physical activity into our everyday life, and so it becomes natural and easy, then it becomes part of our well-being. It becomes a no-brainer. So you stand up, then you start marching on the spot, then you walk around the coffee table, then you walk to the kitchen and back, then you see, can I whiz upstairs, walk upstairs steps, that's a bit more physically, more exertion, and see how many times you can walk up and down the stairs. But you're going to build up to it. You're not going to start sprinting up and down the stairs the very first time you're going to get some physical activity. What I'm talking about here is setting small wins. So set yourself up to win. Don't set yourself up for failure. Why do New Year's resolutions never last? Because we want to change the world. We want to do everything. We're asking way too much of ourselves. So start small and work on it. And the third aspect of things that we can start looking at towards that's good for our mental health is nutrition. Please, I didn't say diet, I said nutrition. There's a lot to be said for the minimum of 5 a day. And I have heard that the nutritionists are talking about, it should be 8 a day or 13 a day. Actually, if all you're surviving on is protein, fat, and refined carbohydrates, then anything green or yellow or red of a different color, fruit and veg in your diet is a step forward. So we're talking about 3 foundation blocks: sleep, physical activity, and nutrition. And those are the best 3 places to start.
And once you've got those, what's the next step?
I think the next step is to start looking at levels of stress. There's an activity that we have called the stress container, and start looking at what are your sources of stress? I think it's what I'm trying to say here. What are your sources of stress? Okay, and can you do something about it? Some of us know that we stress over A, B, C. We know that, for example, we can't do absolutely nothing about C, therefore ignore it. Why stress over it? If you can't change anything, why stress over it? But if you can do something about A and get a quick win on it and reduce the level of stress in your stress container, why don't we?
But I think sometimes if we go back to C for a minute, I think that for me, you have got C and you can't control it, but can you do something to process it and to put things in place? What I'm thinking of is that there is a potential that at some point I may have to move back to France for a few months. And whilst I have no control over that bit, I can start putting things in place. I can start organising in my head, because that makes me feel better. So there's that self-awareness as well. Do you know what makes you feel good or bad? Because it sounds like something so silly, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And one of the big things is ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes sitting down with a friend and going, I really don't know what to do here. What do you think my options are? Or will you help me explore my options?
Yeah.
That's wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Alcoholics Anonymous in their AA meetings, they use the part of what's known as the Serenity Prayer. And it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah.
Courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is, if this is something that you should change, then do something about it. If this is something that you can't change, why try cross a bridge that isn't a bridge to cross?
Devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Something you know you should change, but sometimes people don't do that. Find excuses to not do that. Run away from doing that.
Well, that possibly suggests that there's more going on in the background there that should be explored with an appropriate professional, such as a psychotherapist. Somebody that you can actually talk about what's going on, why you're not doing it. We all have reasons to procrastinate.
Yeah.
And if we want to stay exactly where we are in the same position that we're in today, and we want to be in exactly the same position in 3 years' time, 5 years' time, 20 years' time, hey, you don't need to change anything. Why bother? Why are we having this conversation? But if you want to be a better person tomorrow than you are today, a better person today than I was yesterday, then you've got to look at the stuff and go, right, I need a plan to start changing things.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing to do at this point is to ask, well, how do we eat an elephant? If people talk about, oh, the elephant in the room that we're not dealing with, but we eat an elephant. It's a management construct. We eat an elephant one mouthful at a time. We don't try and eat the whole elephant in one go because we'll probably choke on it. But if we eat that elephant one mouthful at a time, little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit by little bit, before too long, you'll be amazed at the progress you can make. But you've got to start small. There's
a little issue here where you've got so much instant gratification nowadays. You know, you press a button, Amazon rocks up the next day. But people sometimes, if you say it's going to take 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, they're like, oh, can't be bothered to start. There's no point. And that is fair. I mean, I know that. What was it? I wanted to order something the other day, and the delivery was going to be 5 days. And I'm like, who delivers in 5 days nowadays? No, I'm going to the company, you know. And
yeah,
aware of all these things, but
I have a question for you. Is it worth it?
Well, it depends. You know,
if it's worth it, it's worth waiting for. If it's worth it, you'll do it bit by bit.
Yeah.
And only you can make that decision. That's your choice. You're the person who has control over that. Do you really want to make a difference?
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people do, but are scared of the work. I do see that with the customers I have. The ones who never sign up are the one that all of a sudden go, I'm going to have to face up to stuff I don't want to face up to. I'll just run the other direction.
Yeah. And people will do that. You know, they will do a duck and run. But nobody made change in this world by doing exactly the same thing. Who was it who
Einstein.
It's been attributed to, I think it was Albert Einstein, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Well, hang on a minute. Ain't going to change unless you change it. And it's within our control. So what are we going to do about this?
Yeah.
You know, we've got to have a look at what can we change? Can we get some quick wins in what needs our urgent attention? You know, if I know a lot of your work is around relationships, Sophie, and if a person's in a relationship of domestic violence, that is probably the one thing that needs urgent attention.
Yeah.
Forget everything else. That needs urgent attention. And finding ways of reaching out to people to get help and support in that situation is probably the most important thing you can do to decrease stress in your life, to make progress, to get to become the person you want to be with the life that you want to have with it. But you've got to start somewhere, and the choice is yours. Now, I know that there are people who, just for now, staying in that relationship is the right thing to do for a number of different reasons. But they've thought it through. They have a plan. They know what they're doing. They know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
But they've thought it through. They've got a plan. But if you just go, oh, well, there's no point. There's no hope for me after this. You're never going to know, because you're never going to get there.
Yeah, completely.
Not Brené Brown, Susan Fear talks about feel the fear and do it anyway. Sorry, hang on. Is her name Fear? The book is on the bookshelf behind me somewhere. Nope, not that one. It's laughing at me. I can't see it. But it's feel the fear and do it anyway. Because only by getting outside our comfort zone do we actually bring about change and improvement in our own lives. If you want the same old, same old, same old, then hey, just stay there, same old, same old, same old.
Yeah, I think there's another issue, which is that people, I don't know if it's what's sold on in movies or whatever, if you go back to relationship a minute, you know, people who can't meet someone, who want a partner, but it's not happening, half the time they want to be saved. They want someone else to take them and scoop them up and do it all for them. And that's why they can't find anybody. And
well, it doesn't work that way.
To be happy by themselves before someone else can help.
Yeah. You've got to learn to be happy where you are.
You can't.
Yeah, you've got to be the partner you want to be.
Yeah, exactly. But no, you know, is that I need rescuing? No, you don't. Rescue you, help yourself.
Yeah. Be the best you that you can be, and somebody will come along. Yeah, I met my husband internet date. No, I didn't meet my husband internet dating, but we were both on the same internet dating site. We missed each other, and it missed us completely. And we both wondered, how did that happen? Something in the app. 10, where are we? 10 and a half years on. We are 13 and a half years on. We're celebrating 10 and a half years of marriage. So
yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, going back to dating and apps, just because I want to put that point across, you know, people are very restricted. So you get to say they're 40, then we look at only certain ages and they discriminate in a way. I mean, there's some people that I would not have met or I've met in real life. I would never have met online dating because they were out of the criteria. I mean, we're going back years here, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. But, you know, again, going back to, for example, our stress, we've got to deal with our stress. We've got to get some quick wins. Think about wearing a shoe that's too tight. And if we don't deal with our stress, that shoe that's too tight, that pinches, eventually will turn, you know, it'll blister. The blister could get infected. It could have a huge impact on our lives. And dealing with the stress in our life is one of the important ways of dealing with our mental health and making sure that we are in a place of good, strong mental health.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, if I look at myself in the last 10 years, it's really been one thing after another. Every time I feel like I'm picking myself back up, something else brings me back down, and then I pick myself back up and it's back down, to the point that it's not I look forward to what's going to happen next. Well, I mean, I kind of like expect something else to happen at some point. This is not the right way to be at all.
But that's life.
Yeah.
Life happens, and what's important is to review when stuff happens like that. To sit back and review it and go, what happened? What can I do about it? Or what would I do differently next time? And make a plan to do something differently. What worked? What didn't work? What would I do differently next time?
What I was going to say is that actually it's facing up to it each time. Yeah. Because if you just like go, oh no, poor me, it's not fair. That's when you don't get anywhere. You've got to face up to it. Okay, why am I feeling this way? What can I, you know, and I remember when I lost my cat in November, a cat, but honestly, it was like I'd lost hope, I'd lost everything. And I was like, right, I need to sort this out. I can't stay in this place because I was heading like really down the wrong path. And I remember we were, I decided to go, right, okay, what are my goals? What do I want in life? And I summed up that I wanted a new TV and I wanted a new cat. And I was telling a friend about it, and he just laughed and he said to me, Jesus Christ, what's happened to you? 20 years ago, your goals were quite big. And he said, is it you've achieved them all, or is it that you just completely changed and you've got no ambition anymore? And actually the answer was, no, I'm content with what I've got. And the flipping it around, actually, all of a sudden, all the low mood and stuff was lifted. So like, yeah, I don't have my cat anymore, but actually I've got everything else.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people spend time that they lose a lot of time and energy worrying about what they haven't got and not appreciating what they have got. And I often encourage people, that what do they call it? Develop an attitude of gratitude. And we've seen the campaigns on Facebook where people are encouraged to write 3 things down every day, gratitude journal, 3 things down every day that you're grateful for, and you're not allowed to repeat yourself. So the first few days or even weeks potentially is actually quite easy to do, because you can talk about being grateful for the big things. And then bit by bit, you get down to being grateful for the small things. And you notice smaller and smaller and more finite things. And that in itself can be a mood lifter, because we're appreciating what we have. We're appreciating the beauty in the world around us. And that can lift our mental health.
And I think sometimes it's also, I'm not one for affirmations, and I'll tell you why. Because I sometimes feel that you're trying to put a positive head on something that you're actually feeling really sad about, and you're not congruent in that. And I think sometimes you need to recognize that, okay, I'm feeling pretty shit today, and I'm going to actually stay like that because I need to explore why I'm feeling like this in order to move forward. As if, no, I'm fine, and I'll find that then you actually feel worse.
Okay, just thinking about that. When you say I'm fine, all you're doing is denying the situation. So you're actually hiding the truth from yourself. If your attitude was the realization that first thing in the morning, oh, I'm feeling lousy today.
Why is that?
Why is that? And deal with it. Or go, okay, I'm feeling lousy today. I'm probably going to have a short fuse with other people. So I'm going to go out of my way to be nice and charming to other people, because I'm not going to take out my ugly attitude. It's not somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
I'm going to be, I'm going to say thank you or good morning or hello or after you or may I help you with that or whatever's needed to get that. So it's not such an affirmation. It's being authentic about how you're feeling and realizing that how I'm feeling is nobody else's fault. I've got to deal with that. I've got to look at it's my attitude that counts here, and I need to change my attitude. Now, I may or may not be able to deal with where this yucky feeling has come from first thing in the morning, but it certainly doesn't give me the right to take my yuckiness out on other people.
But I think sometimes, you've got to also allow yourself to feel the bad emotion, because if you don't...
No, listen, I'm not... Yeah, absolutely not denying that. Yeah, we do need to feel those emotions and sort them out, but we don't need to take them out on other people.
Oh, no, quite no. I think that, for instance, the anniversary of my dad's death is coming up pretty soon. And I already know I'm not going to be great on that day. So, just...
plan a good a day as you can have, knowing that you might need to limit some of the stuff you need, and make sure you got a packet of tissues and give yourself permission to cry if you need to.
Yeah, that's it.
I don't have a problem with that.
That's it.
That's realistic. That's genuine. It's being authentically you, and that's okay.
Again, it's going back to self-awareness, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah, but we can learn it.
Yes, by asking ourselves the difficult questions.
Yeah. But again, and part of that goes back to looking at when stuff happens, what worked, what didn't work, and what would I do differently next time?
Yeah.
Because I talked about each of us having an ability to cope with stress. Some people have a small ability to cope with stress, i.e., they're more vulnerable. Some of us have quite big stress containers. Sophie, you and I probably have pretty big stress containers. We've experienced all sorts of stuff in life. We know stuff happens. We can deal with some stuff. Okay. But the way if we go back to when we were youngsters, we probably had cute little stress containers at that point because they hadn't had a chance to grow.
Yeah.
Stuff happens, we deal with it, we learn what works, what doesn't work, we make changes, we plan, and each time we plan and are able to carry out a plan, our stress container gets slightly bigger, and it grows and grows, and it can only be a positive thing.
Yeah, no, completely. But again,
the other thing
facing up.
Yeah, and another thing to remember as well is that stress and stuff happening in life is common to all of us.
Yeah.
And there are things that we can do that help us cope better with our stress. Apart from those 3 that I mentioned earlier, okay, the sleep, the nutrition, and the physical activity, socializing with our friends that can help reduce our stress. Hobbies, pastimes, that kind of thing. Being creative, if you have creativity, or doing gardening, or volunteering and helping out either the neighbors or the local charity shop, something like that. Giving of our time and our effort to other people It's anything that you do that makes you feel better. For some of us, it's a glass of wine and hot baths and bubbles, my favorite music, and reading a book. I mean, that to me is that's bliss. But it's each one of us needs to find these coping strategies that are healthy and helpful and help each one of us stay in a good place. And it's important that we take time out for self-care.
Yes, because a lot of people don't do that. They try to just fit in all the stuff, and they don't want to get people down, and what are they going to think of me if I don't, and all the rest of it. And that's
what's the hardest word in the English language to say?
Yeah.
No. It's the hardest word in English. Oh, can't say no. We'll let them down, or they'll think less of me.
What people don't realise is when you say yes to everything, you actually say no to yourself and to what you actually really want.
Yeah. And we've got to say yes to ourselves. You know, particularly now where everything is becoming so difficult, so challenging, finances are becoming short, etc. We've got to say yes to ourselves more often because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. So, Susan, we're getting towards the end of our time together. Can you share with us one last pearl of wisdom, please?
Oh, man, you should have given me warning about this one. Okay, I'm going to share one with you that is actually a saying that's on the wall next to me here. And it's, wherever you go with all your heart. Wherever you go with all your heart.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And for everybody else, if you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, and more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.